the majority of ministers from parliament. Now that parliament is composed on the basis of partisanship.
Right, so let's do some analysis on this. We have been joined on Skype by Awula Serwaa, who is part of the Concerned Ghanaians, Pan-Africanists at home and diaspora. She's joining us from London. Awula, nice to talk to you. I know that those of you in the diaspora play a key role in monitoring what goes on here at home when it comes to different policy issues and how it affects your family back home and all of that. Now, there is this critical issue that has been raised about winner takes all. I know that winner takes all has been with us for quite a while, and it's a practice which is seen as pretty worrying. I need to hear from you what the stance of those of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora is when it comes to new governments assuming office and sharing all the posts for their friends and acquaintances and apparatchiks in some instances.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. I mean, this whole concept of winner takes it all, I'm struggling to understand what it's about. What we should be thinking about is what will move the country forward, what is best in the interest of Ghana. So it's not a war that you share spoils of war. It's about what is best for the country. And talking specifically about the recent appointments that the IEA is talking about, I believe the president has said that in future, the post will be elected. I mean, Ghanaians will go and elect these chief executives. So I think our focus should be on educating Ghanaians so that they know what they are looking for and so that they use their judgment to elect the best people for the positions. That's what my, the view of Ghanaians here are. That's where our focus should be.
I know that the election of DCs and local authority heads, as you may be familiar with, the election of it in Ghana is a political promise that has been made. But DCs and MCEs constitute a small fraction of those who are giving appointments. What the IEA is talking about is in instances where it's obvious that people are awarded for their brutish stance or their vile utterances during electioneering campaigns when their governments come to power. Is this something that we should be encouraging?
I mean, of course not. I mean, how would that move any country forward? I mean, even on the campaign, how behavior is not acceptable, and one would not expect a president to appoint such people. As I've been saying, if you are appointing somebody, one would expect the president, which I'm sure he's minded to do, is to appoint the qualified people, people who are competent, and people who are able to move the country forward. It's not in anybody's interest to appoint incompetent people. It doesn't help anybody or the opposition. So I think that if Ghanaians begin to realize their point, there'll be pressure to ensure that the people who are appointed are qualified. I think that is what the way forward should be. Encouraging the president to, to follow the constitution, and in looking at the recommendations that have been submitted to him, look for the best people, not necessarily people who have supported him. Although I do understand that if you have a vision, you would want people who support your vision to help you to move the vision forward. But I'm sure that you can get the best people without getting just people who have been, noisy people in the party. We need competent people who are able to do the job.
I know that if you take, for example, the United Kingdom, which you might be very familiar, hardly do you see a government or parties appointing opposition parties unless in instances of coalition governments and all of that. So I'm using the UK example as to perhaps suggest that we might not necessarily be doing things bad after all. Maybe we're just using the wrong approaches. You don't think so?
Well, the best thing for me is, first of all, what does our constitution say? And at the end of the day, if you're looking at appointing somebody, whether he's a member of your party or a member of the opposition, the guiding criteria should be, is the person competent? Is he able to do the job? So you might look at examples from the UK or any other country, but I think the guiding principle should be, even if there are people within your own party, are they able to do the job? Do they have the right qualifications? I mean, somebody may have the qualifications, but may not have the experience, may not have the competence. So I think those are what you should be looking at, not rewarding people for having supported you. That's not a qualification for being appointed. Or should not be the qualification.
But would you say we should be making exceptions? I mean, I know that we're still exploring the issue of winner takes all, but if I say, should we be making exceptions, would you suggest that there should be a policy where, for example, the Inspector General of Police, the IGP, maybe the Army Chief, maybe the National Security Head, or Intelligence Head are kept, you know, regardless of which government, which political party wins? Should we be considering such policies to guide our way forward as a developing country?
Well, I think when the president comes, he obviously needs to look at how he can move his vision forward, how he can work. The important thing for me is whether you keep the people who are there. The important thing is that whoever you think of changing for the right reasons. Have people who are qualified and competent. For me, that is the bottom line. You don't keep people for the sake of keeping them or change them on a whim. You want to make sure that you have the right people in the right positions, able to move the country forward. Because I'm sure that when you're running for elections, you have a plan, you have a vision. So obviously, you want to be surrounded by people who you believe are best equipped to move you forward. And whatever you are doing, you must be minded and guided by the Constitution and ensure that you are not in breach of it. But the bottom line is that the people you are appointing, are they got the experience? Do they have the confidence of their peers? Are they able to do the job? That should be your guiding principle.
Right. We would have to wrap up our conversation. But before you go, I know that Ghanaians in the United Kingdom and across Europe, when there are changes in government, they have expectations because their family members are home. What are your expectations of the numerous appointments the president have made? I mean, I'm shifting a little bit away from winner takes all to talk about real governance issues. What are you looking at seeing this government achieve in its 4 years in office?
Well, I'm hoping that the government in the 4 years that they are going to be there are going to move Ghana from a dependent country, which is always looking at outsiders to come and move the country forward, to rely on the expertise and skills we have in the country, taking on what Kwame Nkrumah used to do. Let's rely on ourselves. What can we do? And not go cap in hand every day to donors. I mean, and even when we're looking for investors, look within the African diaspora, not always going to Europeans or non-Africans to move us forward. I hope that it's about self-reliance and about a vision that Ghanaians can be part of making a good destiny for Ghanaians. We don't necessarily always have to go to non-Ghanaians to move us forward. So it's about confidence. And that's what I'm hoping that this government is looking at. When you talk about factories in every district, you don't necessarily have to go to non-African nations, investors to help us. We can look at resources within the Pan-African diaspora. So that's what we are hoping to see. Confidence in the African, confidence in his capabilities. And I think that's educating us to, reach our full potential without always relying on outsiders. We have what it takes to move ourselves forward. So that's what we are hoping would happen in this presidency.
Right, Awula Serwaa, we're extremely grateful. Thank you very much. Awula Serwaa is part of the Concerned Ghanaians and Pan-Africanists at home and the diaspora. We always enjoy her contributions here. This is News at 10. We're streaming live on our Facebook page and also on 3news.com. I'm Stephen Enti. We have more news for you. Welcome back. Now, 15,000 youth will be recruited for community policing by the Ghana Police Service. Their collaboration with the Youth Employment Agency seeks to recruit qualified, well-deserving youth with integrity into the service. DCOP Yagi Akuriba is the Director General in charge of Visibility Department of the Ghana Police Service. Let's hear him.
This innovation will create jobs for thousands of young men and women, awaken the security consciousness of community members, and also serve as a major source of recruiting qualified, passionate, and well-deserving officers of integrity into the Ghana Police Service.
Right, let's get on to Skype again and speak with Sani Adib, a security analyst, joining us. Mr. Adib, good evening and thank you very much for your time. So, community policing, that's not a new one, but how crucial is community policing to our general security in our communities and in the country in general?
Thank you very much. A very good evening to your cherished viewers. Before we know how crucial it is important that we take a closer look at the history behind community policing. As a matter of fact, the earliest writer on community policing is Sir Robert Peel, who in 1829 came out with the 9 principles of community policing that we know today as the Peelian principles. And it says that when there is force on society, the lesser you have people cooperating with the police. So what it means is reinforcing the importance of community policing, which is aimed at crime prevention and is aimed at also harnessing the relationship between the police and the communities in which they operate. I've always contended that we are a country of about 27 million people, and the police population in Ghana is about 32,000, spread across about 700 stations. What it means is the police-civilian ratio in Ghana is about 1 police officer is to about 800 Ghanaians. And in urban areas such as Tamale, Kumasi, Accra, it's even more staggering. For each police officer, we have about 1,500 Ghanaians, meaning they cannot be everywhere all the time. That is why it's important that we harness that relationship based on trust and confidence between the police and the people. So even in Western jurisdictions, such as the US, such as the United Kingdom, it is something that is encouraged, even under the 1994 Law Enforcement Act in the United States, which is under the criminal justice system. It is encouraged because it bridges the gap between the people and the police. And when that happens, you will not just have the people revealing crucial, critical information to the police to make their investigation much more easier for them, but you would have them within the ambits of the law, apprehending the wrongdoers and handing them over to the police. Because hate it or love it, the criminal elements are in these societies, and without the people in these societies, trust me, it will be very difficult for the police to do their job.
Right, Ms. Adib, I will be coming for us to explore the role of the communities themselves. But before I do that, I still want us to look at how crucial this is. You've told us in clear terms that community policing is crucial, but which forms or which structures must be put in place to ensure that it works for us? I mean, because obviously recruiting people to work in the communities wouldn't exactly be the same as working in the police service, and I reckon that supervision and monitoring of these community officers might be problematic if we don't put in place the right structures.
Well, indeed, in the past we have constricted community policing to a much more interventionary posture, but that is not the way to go. Modern policing, that is in consonance with best international practices, has to be proactive. So instead of limiting the police to just their vehicles doing the rounds, why don't we have them patrolling the streets of our neighborhoods? Why don't we have them engaging the opinion leaders, the chiefs, the religious leaders in these societies? Also, I think it's important we understand the police subculture. You know, it's so much command-based that for certain basic activities or interventions to be carried out, at the lower level, you would need instructions from the very top. And considering how bureaucratic our system is, I think it is only important that we give junior level officers the right training and the right authority to be able to carry out some of these activities without necessarily recourse to the top structure, which in most of the cases is so much bottlenecked. Apart from that, I think lots of training and education would have to be done. It doesn't have to be limited to just the police. The communities would need to understand that the police is there to support. And on several occasions, I've met high-ranking police officials. Have proposed very wonderful, plausible ideas, which I don't know why it's not been taken, which is basically aimed at, reaching out to the people. On weekends, you could have the police organizing, games with the communities in which they operate. We could have the IGP walking through the streets of Nima or Jamestown, interacting with the people and getting to know what their concerns are. We could have them doing a whole lot, basically aimed at harnessing that trust and confidence between the police and the people.
I tell you, our police service is most often very eager to arrest you for a crime than to help you avoid the crime. But let's look at what roles these communities themselves should be playing in assisting the police service to protect them better.
Well, in the past, we have had the neighborhood watchdogs. Unfortunately, some years back, because of the incidents in Taifa, it is something that has not been so much encouraged. But we still do have them still around, just that they are not as energetic and vibrant as it used to be. So I think it's important the communities come together, put together some of these neighborhood watchdogs, speak with the police, get all the necessary training, the permits, so they complement the role of the police in discharging their duties. But like I indicated, with education, especially not just limited to the police, when Shiraj and the National Commission for Civic Education come in and educate people on the need to, as it were, cooperate with the police and share critical information with them, I think to a very large extent it will help.
Right. Mr. Sani, would you say, finally, before we let you go, that with the police liaising with the Youth Employment Agency, is that the approach? Is that the way to go?
Well, I think it's a giant step in the right direction, but it is not the ultimate. As a matter of fact, in other jurisdictions, we have something similar to that called conscriptions. That is where people are made to compulsorily serve in the army for a number of years before going into any other profession of their choice. For example, Egypt, Israel. As a matter of fact, in North Korea, you're supposed to be conscripted into the army for not less than 10 years as a male. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Right. But it's important we take into consideration the training that we give these gentlemen, because obviously they will be privy to very important or classified information. And if you don't have them adhering to international best practices, to the code of ethics, and perhaps to a very large extent adhering to the Police Service Act, the mandate 1970, which is basically aimed at protecting life and property. Right. I think it will help to a large extent. But like I indicated, I have a friend of mine who has been defrauded by another gentleman for a huge sum of money. And I've asked him, why haven't you taken the case to the police? And all he tells me is, I don't want police issues, because when I go there, the bureaucracy, I might even end up not getting to the bottom of it and might even end up wasting my time. So I think all in all, it should go beyond the boots on the ground. I think it's important we give credence to human security, because in the past we have concentrated so much on state security. But in 1994, the United Nations Development Program came out with a 14-pointer on human security that involves political security, food security, community security, and a whole lot of security that is human and individual-centered rather than the state. So going forward, I think we can give so much credence to the human security aspect of ensuring the wider security. By so doing, I think it would help to a very large extent.
Right, Mr. Sani, Mr. Adib Sani, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Sani Adib is a security analyst. Now, residents at Madina Estate in Accra are exposed to unbearable stench from animal blood produced by an abattoir in the area. Officials of the abattoir, Johnny's Food and Meat Complex, Jamfco, according to residents, failed to heed several complaints.
There is uneasy calm in the Madina estate following residents complain over the stench from Jifanco. It is common to see blood flow through the drains and sometimes into homes, causing some discomfort. Flies are all over the place, which obviously could be a source of cholera and other communicable diseases. Some residents claim children have been diagnosed of infectious diseases, which they are linking to the alleged unhygienic. Flies are all over the place, which obviously could be a source of cholera and other communicable diseases. Some residents claim children have been diagnosed of infectious diseases, which they are linking to the alleged unhygienic conditions from the abattoir.
We find it difficult to sleep at night. The noise and the smell are unbearable.
From the abattoir.
We find it difficult to sleep at night. The noise and the smell are unbearable.
Residents express dismay over the inability of the company to address the challenge, which they believe is one of the key requirements for such operations.
We work in the night around 10. We start working at around 10 to daybreak 4:30. The sound, the smell, the sound and the smell is too much. It's too much.
It was not clear what actions are being taken by authorities, even though some residents claim the Environmental Protection Agency has served the company with caution.
And that's it for News at 10. Thank you very much for making time. I'm Stephen Anti on behalf of the rest of the crew. Good night. There is more news at 3news.com.